The Brave Little Mouse, Chapter 1, The Littlest Mouse. In the heart of the meadow, where the tall grass swayed and the wildflowers whispered to the wind, there was a cozy little burrow hidden beneath the roots of an old oak tree. Inside lived a family of mice, quick, clever, and always busy. But among them was Milo, the smallest of them all. Milo had the tiniest paws, the softest whiskers, and, according to his siblings, the biggest fears. He was afraid of the owl's shadow that stretched across the ground at dusk. He was afraid of the wind rustling through the grass at night, and he was especially afraid of the big stone bridge that led to the other side of the meadow. Milo's big brother Theo was the fastest mouse in the burrow. He could dart between roots and leap over fallen twigs without ever slowing down. His sister Lottie was the most playful. She climbed the tallest stalks of wheat, chased fireflies, and always laughed the loudest. And then there was Milo, the careful one, the quiet one. "You worry too much, Milo," Lottie said one evening as the family nibbled on seeds and berries. Theo grinned. "Yeah, the world isn't as scary as you think." Milo twitched his nose but said nothing, because the world was big and Milo was very, very small. The bridge. There was one thing that scared him more than anything else: the bridge. It was old and made of rough gray stones, stretching across the wide river that divided the meadow. No mouse ever needed to cross it. Everything they needed, food, water, shelter, was right here. So why think about it? One morning, as the sun peeked over the hills, Milo's mother handed him a small satchel of sunflower seeds. "Milo, dear, I need you to take these to Grandmouse," she said gently. "She's feeling under the weather, and these will help her feel better." Milo's ears perked up. He loved Grandmouse. She always had the warmest hugs and the sweetest smelling blankets in her burrow. But then, his mother added something else. "She's on the other side of the bridge." Milo's tail curled tight. The bridge. His heart thumped. "Can't Theo take them?" he asked quickly. "Theo and Lottie are out gathering berries," his mother said, "and Grandmouse needs these before nightfall." Milo gulped. Him, alone, crossing the bridge? "But," he started, his tiny paws gripping the satchel. His mother bent down and nuzzled his forehead. "I know it seems big, Milo," she whispered, "but I believe in you." Milo looked down at the seeds, then up at his mother's warm, kind eyes. Grandmouse needed him. Could he really do it? He took a deep breath. Maybe he could try. With the satchel slung over his shoulder, Milo stepped outside and took his first step toward the bridge. The biggest journey of his life had begun. Chapter 2, The Bridge of Worries. Milo walked through the meadow, his tiny paws brushing against the soft earth. The satchel of seeds felt heavy on his shoulder, even though he knew it wasn't the weight of the seeds. It was the weight of what lay ahead. The bridge. The sun shone brightly overhead, and the tall grass swayed gently in the breeze. The meadow was peaceful, but Milo's little heart thumped louder with every step. He passed by a squirrel gathering acorns, stuffing them into his cheeks one by one. The squirrel noticed Milo and gave a friendly flick of his tail. "Where are you off to, little mouse?" he asked. Milo swallowed. I have to take these seeds to my Grandmouse," he said. "She lives across the bridge." The squirrel's ears perked up. "The big stone bridge?" Milo nodded slowly. The squirrel whistled. "That's a long way for a tiny mouse like you. You must be very brave." Milo's ears drooped. He didn't feel brave. Not at all. Well, I have to go," Milo said quickly, scurrying past before the squirrel could ask any more questions. He didn't want to talk about the bridge. He just wanted to get it over with. The first glimpse. As Milo reached the edge of the meadow, the trees parted, and there it was, the big stone bridge. Milo froze. The bridge stretched long and high, made of rough gray stones, some of them covered in patches of green moss. It arched over the wide river, where the water swirled and shimmered in the sunlight. It was even bigger than he remembered. Milo's paws felt stuck to the ground. What if the stones are slippery? What if a gust of wind pushes me off? What if a big bird sees me from above? Milo shivered. He could turn back now. He could run home and tell his mother that the bridge was too big, too scary, too dangerous. But then he imagined Grandmouse waiting for him, feeling tired and hungry. She was counting on him. Milo took a shaky breath. I can do this. He took one tiny step, then another and another, and before he knew it, his paws were touching the first stone of the bridge. The journey had begun. Chapter 3. The First Steps. Milo stood at the very edge of the bridge, his tiny paws resting on the cool stone. The satchel of seeds felt heavier than before, as if it knew how scared he was. He took a deep breath, one step at a time. Milo lifted his foot and placed it on the first stone. Nothing happened. He took another step, then another. The bridge didn't crumble. The stones didn't shake. The wind didn't blow him away. Maybe, just maybe, this wasn't so bad. But then, whoosh! A gust of wind rushed past him, ruffling his fur. Milo froze. What if the wind gets stronger? What if it pushes me off the bridge? His tail curled tight, and for a moment he thought about running back. But then he remembered Grandmouse waiting for him on the other side. He planted his paws firmly on the stone. I just have to keep going. Milo pressed forward step by step. The wind died down. The bridge stayed strong. Milo kept walking, the moving shadow. Halfway across the bridge, something caught his eye. A shadow, long and dark, moving across the stone. Milo's heart pounded. An owl? He ducked down low, pressing himself flat against the bridge. He didn't dare move. The shadow shifted again, stretching across the stone. Milo squeezed his eyes shut. Please don't see me. Please don't see me. But then, he noticed something. The shadow wasn't swooping. It wasn't flapping its wings. It was growing. Milo peeked up. The shadow wasn't an owl at all. It was a cloud moving across the sun. Milo blinked. He had been scared of a cloud. Slowly, he stood back up. Then, something surprising happened. Milo laughed. Not a big laugh, just a small, soft chuckle. I was scared of a cloud, he whispered to himself, shaking his head. And just like that, he felt a little braver. Milo took another step, then another, and another. He was almost there, but just as he started feeling confident, crack! One of the stones beneath his paws shifted. Milo stumbled forward, arms flailing, the satchel swinging from his shoulder. Pebbles tumbled down into the river below. Milo gasped. The bridge wasn't as sturdy as he thought. He still had a long way to go. Chapter 4. The Wobbly Stone. Milo's heart raced as he steadied himself. His tiny paws clung to the rough stone beneath him. For a moment, he couldn't move. He just stared down at the pebbles tumbling into the river below, disappearing into the swirling water. His tail curled tight. That could have been me. A cold shiver ran through him. Maybe this was too dangerous. Maybe he really was too small to cross the bridge. Maybe. Then he heard a tiny voice inside him. You're still here, Milo. You didn't fall. Milo took a shaky breath. That was true. He was still standing. He looked back toward the meadow. It felt so far away now. Then he looked ahead. The other side of the bridge was closer than he thought. Grandmouse's burrow was just beyond those last few steps. He couldn't stop now, so he didn't. Milo tested the next stone with one careful paw. It held firm. Step. He placed his other paw beside it. Step. The bridge bridge didn't shake, the stones didn't crack. Milo kept going, step, step, step. The wind brushed his fur, but it felt softer now. The bridge stretched ahead, but it didn't seem so endless. His paws still trembled, but his steps were steady. And then, the next thing he knew, his paws touched solid dirt. He was on the other side. Milo blinked. He did it. A wave of warmth spread through his chest. He had crossed the bridge. He turned, looking back at the long path he had taken. It was still big. It was still high. But for some reason, it didn't seem so scary anymore. Taking a deep breath, he tightened the satchel over his shoulder and turned toward Grandmouse's burrow. He had a delivery to make. Chapter 5. Grandmouse's Lesson. Milo scurried down the path, his paws feeling lighter than they had all day. The bridge was behind him. Grandmouse's burrow was just ahead, tucked beneath a twisting vine-covered tree. The air smelled of fresh herbs and wildflowers, and the soft sound of a bubbling brook trickled nearby. He reached the entrance and tapped lightly on the wooden door. "Come in, dear," came a warm, familiar voice. Milo pushed the door open and stepped inside. A warm, welcome Grandmouse was sitting in her cozy rocking chair, wrapped in a soft, knitted blanket. A small candle flickered beside her, casting a warm glow around the burrow. Her whiskers twitched with delight when she saw Milo. "Oh my, look at you," she said, opening her arms wide. "Come here, my little traveler." Milo hurried into her hug, feeling safe and warm in her soft fur. "I brought you these," he said, slipping the satchel from his shoulder and placing it in her paws. Grandmouse peeked inside and smiled. "Ah, sunflower seeds, just what I needed." She set the satchel down, then patted the chair beside her. "Tell me, Milo, how was your journey?" Milo hesitated. Then, before he knew it, the words tumbled out. He told her about the wind that made him freeze, the shadow that looked like an owl, the loose stone that almost sent him tumbling down. He told her how scared he had been. Grandmouse listened carefully, nodding now and then, her wise eyes twinkling. When he finished, she reached for his tiny paw and held it gently. "Oh, Milo," she said softly, "you were very, very brave today." Milo blinked. "Brave? But I was scared the whole time," he admitted. "I almost turned back. My legs were shaking. My heart wouldn't stop thumping." Grandmouse chuckled and gave his paw a gentle squeeze. "Being brave doesn't mean not being scared, my dear," she said. "It means moving forward even when you are." Milo thought about that. Had he been scared? Yes. Had he wanted to turn back? Yes. But had he kept going anyway? He had. And that meant he had been brave all along. A new feeling. Milo let out a deep breath. Something inside him felt different. A little bigger, a little taller, a little stronger. He smiled. Grandmouse patted his paw. "Now how about some warm tea and honey biscuits before you go back home?" Milo's ears perked up. "Yes, please." And so, under the flickering candlelight, Milo and Grandmouse sat together, sipping tea and nibbling biscuits, wrapped in the warmth of a lesson he would never forget. Chapter 6. The Journey Back. After a warm meal and a long chat, Milo felt different. He had come to Grandmouse's burrow shaky and unsure, but now, as he stood at the door ready to leave, something had changed. The bridge was waiting for him, but this time, it didn't feel like a mountain. It felt like a path. A goodbye hug. Grandmouse wrapped him in one more soft, warm hug. "You'll do just fine, my dear," she said. "Remember, bravery isn't about not being scared." Milo smiled. "It's about moving forward anyway." Grandmouse nodded. "That's my boy." Milo tightened his satchel and stepped outside. The sun was lower now, casting long golden streaks across the meadow. Fireflies were beginning to flicker in the distance, and the air was cool and crisp. It was time to go home. Crossing the bridge again. Milo walked up to the edge of the bridge. He placed his paw on the first stone. He didn't freeze. He didn't hesitate. He just walked. Step, step, step. The wind still whispered through the trees. The river still rushed below. The shadows still stretched and danced in the evening light. But Milo wasn't afraid. He crossed the bridge without stopping. And when he reached the other side, he looked back. The bridge was still big, but it wasn't bigger than him anymore. Home again. As Milo approached the burrow, he saw his family waiting for him. Theo's ears perked up. "You really crossed the bridge?" Lottie's eyes were wide. "All by yourself?" Milo grinned. "Yep." His mother knelt down and nuzzled his forehead. "I knew you could do it," she whispered. Milo felt warmth spread through him. He had done something big today, and the best part? Tomorrow, he wouldn't be afraid of the bridge anymore. He was Milo, the brave little mouse, and he was ready for whatever adventure came next.